Shalom, and welcome to our channel. This is a place where we learn about what's required of us by our Creator, as we prepare to be part of His kingdom being established here on earth. Join us by subscribing and let's walk this journey of growth together. Throughout history, empires have risen to majestic heights only to eventually crumble under the weight of their own internal contradictions and widespread denial of inherent weaknesses. In this video, we will trace this recurring pattern of decline across three distinct yet interconnected eras. We shall begin with the ancient civilizations of Rome and Greece, whose cultural and political splendors were ultimately undermined by overreach, internal discord, and a collective refusal to acknowledge their vulnerabilities. Moving forward in time, we examine the modern European powers, Germany, Italy, and France, where the same dangerous tendencies of blame shifting and national denial not only precipitated catastrophic internal crises, but also paved the way for extremist ideologies and profound historical consequences. Finally, we will turn our focus to today's global superpowers, America and Britain, whose gradual erosion of influence and persistent institutional decay echo the timeless lessons of past empires. We shall see how the refusal to confront uncomfortable truths has repeatedly set the stage for the decline of even the mightiest of civilizations. We shall then compare what's currently happening in the world to what was prophesied in the Bible, so we can know how to plan for the future. The rise to dominance, the Greek ascendancy. Ancient Greece was never a monolithic empire in the way that Rome would later be. Rather, it was a collection of city-states, poleis such as Athens, Sparta, and Corinth, that rose to prominence during the classical period. The rise of Greek civilization was marked by revolutionary advancements in philosophy, science, art, and politics. Athens, in particular, became the cradle of democracy and intellectual inquiry, setting the stage for what many consider the birth of Western civilization. The unity of Greek culture was temporarily achieved through the conquests of Alexander the Great, who, in the 4th century BCE, extended Greek influence across the known world, from Egypt to India. His conquests forged the Hellenistic era, a time when Greek language, culture, and ideas spread across vast territories. This period saw Greek culture adapt and merge with local traditions, creating a dynamic environment of learning and innovation that would influence countless generations. The Roman ascendancy. In contrast, the Roman Empire began as a modest city-state on the Italian peninsula, evolving from a monarchy to a republic, and eventually, under the leadership of figures like Augustus, into an empire that spanned 3 continents. Rome's rise to dominance was driven by a combination of military innovation, a sophisticated legal and political system, and an unparalleled ability to assimilate and adapt the cultures of its conquered peoples. Rome's expansion was methodical and strategic. The establishment of a vast network of roads, aqueducts, and administrative systems facilitated efficient governance and integration of diverse peoples. The Pax Romana, a period of relative peace and stability, allowed for economic growth and cultural flourishing. Citizens of the empire took pride in their shared Roman identity, often viewing their civilization as the pinnacle of human achievement. Internal challenges and overextension. Both the Roman and Greek polities faced significant internal challenges that contributed to their eventual decline. In Rome, the enormous scale of the empire, while a source of strength, eventually became a liability. The vast territories were increasingly difficult to govern, and as the empire expanded, so too did its administrative and military costs. Political corruption, bureaucratic inefficiencies, and power struggles among the elite further undermined the stability of the empire. The once robust institutions that had propelled Rome to greatness became mired in internal decay. Similarly, the Greek world, especially in its later Hellenistic phase, was riddled with factionalism and internecine warfare. After Alexander's death, his empire was divided among his generals, leading to a series of conflicts known as the Wars of the Diadochi. This fragmentation weakened the collective strength of Greek civilization, making it vulnerable to external pressures. The competitive spirit that had once driven innovation and excellence also spurred destructive rivalries among the city-states and successor kingdoms. Economic troubles were central to the decline of both empires. In Rome, heavy taxation, reliance on slave labor, and debasement of the currency contributed to financial instability. Economic inequality grew, and the gap between the wealthy elite and the common people widened. These fiscal challenges were compounded by the costs of constant military campaigns and the maintenance of a sprawling empire. As resources dwindled, public services declined, and civic pride gave way to disillusionment. In the Hellenistic world, economic prosperity was similarly undermined by political fragmentation and warfare. Trade routes that once thrived under unified leadership began to falter, and the economic interdependence that had sustained cultural and intellectual exchange began to disintegrate. Socially, both Roman and Greek citizens experienced a gradual erosion of the communal bonds that had once defined their societies. The familiar structures of patronage, civic participation, and cultural celebration were replaced by a sense of inevitability regarding the decline of their once glorious civilizations. One of the most striking aspects of both empires was the widespread denial of their impending collapse. In Rome, many citizens and leaders clung to the belief that the empire was eternal, a divine institution destined to last forever. This denial was evident in the rhetoric of politicians and the writings of contemporary historians, who often glossed over or rationalized the early signs of decay. The societal confidence in Rome's invincibility blinded many to the internal weaknesses that were festering beneath the surface. Similarly, in the Greek world, the legacy of cultural and intellectual superiority fostered a collective belief that their contributions to art, philosophy, and governance were timeless. The achievements of the past were celebrated as evidence of an enduring civilization, making it difficult for many to accept that the geopolitical landscape was shifting irreversibly. This collective denial delayed necessary reforms and adaptation, leaving both societies unprepared for the inevitable changes. On the Roman people. When the decline of the Roman Empire became undeniable, the impact on its citizens was profound. As barbarian tribes such as the Visigoths, Vandals, and Ostrogoths encroached on Roman territory, the familiar order of daily life disintegrated. Urban centers, once the vibrant hubs of Roman culture and commerce, became battlegrounds and ghost towns. The collapse of centralized authority led to a breakdown in infrastructure, trade, and public services. For the common Roman, the fall of the empire meant a loss of identity and security. The social fabric that had been woven over centuries unraveled, leaving many to grapple with uncertainty and dislocation. The psychological impact of witnessing the collapse of a system in which they had placed their utmost trust was immense. Denial gave way to shock, grief, and, in many cases, a desperate attempt to cling to remnants of the old order. In the Greek world, the effects of decline were similarly devastating, though they manifested differently due to the region's political fragmentation. As the Hellenistic kingdoms succumbed to internal strife and external conquest, most notably by the rising power of Rome, the once proud Greek states were absorbed into larger imperial structures. The loss of political autonomy was keenly felt by those who had once celebrated their city-states' unique contributions to art, philosophy, and governance. The collapse of the Greek political sphere did not immediately erase the cultural legacy of ancient Greece, but it did signal the end of an era where citizens actively participated in self-governance and civic life. The transition from a vibrant, competitive world of independent city-states to a subordinate status within foreign empires was a bitter pill to swallow. Much like their Roman counterparts, many Greeks struggled to accept that the institutions they had revered were irreparably transformed, if not entirely lost. The histories of the Roman and Greek empires, with their dramatic rises and poignant declines, continue to resonate today. Their stories underscore the reality that greatness is not guaranteed, and that the decline of even the most formidable powers can be a slow, almost imperceptible process. As the citizens of these ancient civilizations eventually came to terms with their changing realities, often after years of denial, they left behind legacies that still shape our understanding of governance, culture, and the human condition. In studying their rise and fall, we are reminded that the strength of an empire lies not just in its military might or economic resources, but in its ability to evolve and confront its own limitations. Both Rome and Greece, in their final chapters, offer timeless lessons about the need for humility, vigilance, and the willingness to change before the forces of decay become overwhelming. Empires have long fascinated historians and political theorists alike, offering both the grandeur of rapid rise to power and the cautionary tales of eventual decline. While ancient empires such as Rome and Greece have provided timeless lessons, the modern era has witnessed its own share of dominant powers that, through a complex interplay of ambition, denial, and internal contradictions, ultimately lost their grip on global influence. In examining Germany, Italy, and France, we uncover how these nations rose to prominence, how denial of internal and external challenges contributed to their downfalls, and, in particular, how Germany's collective inability to confront its past enabled the rise of Adolf Hitler, a turning point with catastrophic consequences. The modern German state emerged from the tumult of fragmented principalities in the 19th century. The unification of Germany in 1871, following the Franco-Prussian War, was heralded as a new era of industrial, military, and cultural vigor. Germany quickly became an economic powerhouse with a highly efficient industrial base, advanced technological innovation, and a disciplined military that earned it a formidable reputation on the European stage. However, the aftermath of World War I proved to be a crucible for the German national psyche. The Treaty of Versailles not only imposed harsh reparations, but also humiliated Germany by forcing it to accept sole responsibility for the war. This punitive settlement generated deep-seated resentment and a pervasive sense of national grievance. Instead of confronting these challenges head-on, many Germans fell into a state of collective denial, refusing to accept the full implications of defeat and the necessity for deep internal reform. This denial was not limited to the public at large. It permeated the political and intellectual spheres as well. The unwillingness to acknowledge Germany's internal weaknesses and the failure to implement transformative reforms created fertile ground for extremist ideologies. Capitalizing on national humiliation and economic instability, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party presented themselves as the antidote to Germany's woes. Their narrative was simple yet compelling. The old order had failed, and only radical renewal could restore national pride and power. Hitler's rise was not inevitable, but it was facilitated by a broader societal refusal to reconcile with past mistakes and embrace necessary change. This collective denial left Germany vulnerable to a leader who promised to reclaim lost glory through a path of aggression and intolerance. The consequences were devastating. Hitler's ascent led to a regime marked by authoritarian control, the perpetration of atrocities, and ultimately the devastation of World War II. Germany's tragic journey from a promising unified nation to a pariah state in the post-war world stands as a stark reminder of how denial can empower extremist forces with ruinous results. Italy, imperial ambitions and the illusion of revival. Italy's modern history shares many parallels with Germany's in terms of unification and the subsequent pursuit of national prestige. The Risorgimento, the movement that culminated in the unification of Italy in 1861, brought together disparate states under a single national banner. However, Italy's unification came relatively late compared to other European powers, leaving it eager to assert its influence on the global stage. The allure of emulating the glories of ancient Rome spurred Italy to pursue colonial ambitions in Africa and beyond. Yet, like Germany, Italy found itself caught in a web of denial. The newly unified nation was quick to overlook its internal divisions and socio-economic challenges. In an effort to project an image of strength and unity, many Italians and their leaders chose to ignore the country's structural weaknesses. This atmosphere of self-deception paved the way for the rise of Benito Mussolini and his fascist regime. Mussolini's narrative centered on a romanticized return to Italy's imperial past, a promise to revive the nation's former splendor and restore national dignity. Mussolini's aggressive foreign policies, exemplified by the invasion of Ethiopia in 1935, were grounded in a refusal to acknowledge Italy's limitations. Instead of engaging in realistic assessments of military and economic capabilities, Italian leaders clung to outdated notions of empire and national destiny. This denial not only fueled imperial ambitions but also led to disastrous military engagements during World War II. The eventual military failures and subsequent occupation left Italy with a legacy of political instability and a national identity deeply scarred by the excesses of fascist rule. The Italian experience underscores how denial of internal challenges, historical shortcomings, and the need for gradual reform can push a nation toward risky and ultimately unsustainable policies. Mussolini's fall from power and Italy's post-war struggles to redefine itself are emblematic of the broader dangers of allowing national pride to mask critical self-assessment. France, the twilight of a colonial giant. France's history as a global power is intertwined with its extensive colonial empire, which at its zenith spanned continents and influenced diverse cultures. The French Revolution and subsequent Napoleonic Wars laid the groundwork for a nation that prided itself on liberty, equality, and a grand vision of civilization. Over the centuries, France built a vast empire that contributed to its status as a preeminent cultural and political force in Europe and the wider world. Yet, as the 20th century progressed, France too found itself grappling with the realities of a changing global order. The post-World War II era brought about the process of decolonization, a period during which the French Empire began to unravel. The reluctance to fully acknowledge the economic, political, and moral costs of maintaining a sprawling colonial system contributed to a gradual decline in French global influence. In many respects, France's response to its waning imperial power was marked by denial. The French elite and intellectual class clung to the notion of a timeless cultural superiority, a belief that the nation's legacy in art, philosophy, and governance would inevitably secure its preeminence. This collective mindset delayed necessary reforms and adjustments to the rapidly evolving international landscape. As former colonies demanded independence and global attitudes shifted against colonialism, France found itself struggling to reconcile its storied past with the imperatives of a modern multipolar world. The French experience highlights how a refusal to confront uncomfortable truths about internal and external realities can lead to a slow, painful decline. The loss of colonial territories, coupled with domestic political and economic challenges, forced France to reinvent its national identity and redefine its role on the world stage, a process that continues to this day. The common thread of denial. A striking commonality among the experiences of Germany, Italy, and France is the role of denial in precipitating their respective declines. In each case, a reluctance to accept internal weaknesses, historical shortcomings, or the need for radical reform contributed to policies that ultimately undermine national stability and global standing. For Germany, denial of the humiliations imposed by the Treaty of Versailles created a vacuum that extremist leaders exploited. In Italy, denial of socio-economic and political deficiencies allowed for the rise of a fascist ideology that promised a return to an illusory past glory. In France, the clinging to an outdated imperial self-image delayed a necessary reckoning with the costs of maintaining a global empire, hastening the process of decolonization and the subsequent reshaping of national identity. Denial in these contexts is not merely a passive refusal to face reality. It becomes an active force that distorts decision-making and fuels dangerous ideologies. The lessons are clear. When a nation is unable or unwilling to confront its own vulnerabilities, it risks repeating cycles of overreach and collapse, often with catastrophic consequences for its people and the world at large. Lessons drawn from this decline. The stories of Germany, Italy, and France are emblematic of a broader pattern in the rise and fall of modern empires. Each nation, in its unique way, experienced a period of remarkable ascent fueled by ambition, innovation, and a powerful sense of destiny. Yet when confronted with the realities of internal weaknesses, external pressures, and the need for substantive reform, a pervasive state of denial set in, one that ultimately paved the way for decline. For Germany, the failure to address the humiliation of World War I and the ensuing economic and political crises allowed extremist ideologies to take root, leading to one of the darkest chapters in human history. Italy's misguided pursuit of imperial revival and France's clinging to an outdated model of global dominance further illustrate how denial can distort national trajectories. In our modern era, as nations navigate an increasingly complex and interconnected world, the lessons of these past empires remain as relevant as ever. Confronting the truth about one's limitations and embracing the need for continuous adaptation are not signs of weakness but of wisdom. Only by learning from history can contemporary states hope to avoid the pitfalls of denial and chart a course toward a more sustainable and inclusive future. Empires, whether ancient or modern, seem destined to follow a familiar arc: a meteoric rise to dominance, a period of global influence, and eventually a gradual decline marked by internal contradictions and denial. Today, two of the world's most influential powers, Britain and America, find themselves exhibiting signs of decline reminiscent of historical empires. By examining their ascent, the ways they are managing or mismanaging their decline, and drawing parallels to the ancient Greek experience, particularly the ignored counsel of Nicias, as discussed in Robert Greene's The Laws of Human Nature, we can begin to understand the patterns that signal the inevitable ebb of even the most dominant powers. The rise of the British and American empires. Britain, a legacy of global dominance. Britain's imperial ascent began centuries ago with its maritime prowess and exploration. The British Empire, at its zenith, spanned continents, connecting distant corners of the globe through trade, colonization, and cultural influence. The Industrial Revolution further propelled Britain into a position of economic and technological leadership, creating a powerful national identity intertwined with progress and modernity. British institutions, legal systems, and language became global standards, cementing its status as a world power. America, from a nascent republic to superpower status. The United States, emerging from its revolutionary origins, steadily built its influence through economic expansion, innovation, and a strong military presence. Post-World War II, America's unmatched economic might, cultural dynamism, and ideological appeal positioned it as the leader of the free world. The notion of American exceptionalism drove its international policies, helping to create a global order where U.S. values and interests predominated. With its robust financial institutions, technological advancements, and a pervasive cultural footprint, America became synonymous with progress and possibility. Signs of decline, denial and blame, shifting internal challenges and external pressures. Both Britain and America are now showing signs of strain. Economic inequality, political polarization, and cultural fragmentation have taken root. Institutions that once inspired trust are increasingly viewed with skepticism, and the narrative of inevitable greatness is being replaced by one of disillusionment. Instead of addressing these internal weaknesses head-on, both nations have, in many ways, adopted a posture of denial, engaging in blame-shifting as a way to manage their declining influence. Britain's post-colonial dilemma and Brexit. For Britain, the echoes of its imperial past still resonate. The process of decolonization and the subsequent retreat from a global empire left a vacuum that was never fully addressed. In recent years, political leaders have often shifted blame onto external forces, globalization, supranational institutions, and even immigration, for the economic and cultural challenges facing the country. Brexit, for instance, was not merely a political maneuver. It represented a broader refusal to accept the realities of a connected, interdependent modern world. By attempting to reclaim a lost sense of national sovereignty, Britain risks isolating itself further at a time when collective international action is needed to address global challenges. America's struggle with identity and institutional decline. Across the Atlantic, America faces similar difficulties. The United States, once heralded as a beacon of democracy and progress, is increasingly marked by internal divisions. Political discourse has shifted from a focus on common purpose to a game of shifting blame, whether it's blaming the media, political opponents, or external adversaries for the country's woes. This tendency to externalize problems reflects an unwillingness to confront deeper systemic issues such as economic disparity, institutional corruption, and a waning commitment to civic engagement. Instead of cultivating a culture of introspection and reform, American leaders and citizens alike often prefer to deflect criticism, preserving a narrative of exceptionalism that may no longer align with reality. Managing decline, strategies and denial. Both Britain and America are employing various strategies to manage, or at least mask, the signs of decline. Efforts to rebrand national identity, promote selective aspects of their historical legacies, and rally around charismatic leaders are common responses. However, these measures can serve as mere palliatives, offering temporary comfort, while failing to address the underlying challenges. Denial becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. Leaders claim that external forces are to blame for domestic troubles, thereby avoiding the difficult work of reform. This blame-shifting not only delays necessary change, but also erodes public trust in institutions, further accelerating the decline. Lessons from ancient Greece, the case of Nicias from Athens. History, it seems, has much to teach us about the perils of denial. In ancient Greece, during the Peloponnesian War, the Athenian leader Nicias advocated for cautious diplomacy and a restrained approach to warfare. His warnings were based on a clear-eyed assessment of Athens' strategic vulnerabilities and the dangers of overreach. Yet, as Robert Greene discusses in The Laws of Human Nature, the Athenians ultimately chose to ignore Nicias's prudent advice. Their collective refusal to accept the limits of their power and the ensuing embrace of aggressive policies contributed significantly to their eventual downfall. Nicias's story is instructive for modern empires. Just as the Athenians engaged in self-deception and blame-shifting, so too do Britain and America risk undermining their future by refusing to confront uncomfortable truths. The ancient Greeks believed in the myth of eternal greatness, a narrative that enabled them to ignore signs of weakness and the need for strategic recalibration. Today, a similar dynamic is at play. National pride and a reluctance to acknowledge systemic flaws lead to policies that favor short-term political gains over long-term stability. Comparing ancient and modern denial. The parallels between ancient Athens and today's global powers are striking. In both cases, a refusal to heed wise counsel, in Nicias's case the call for moderation and self-awareness, has led to decisions that exacerbate internal divisions and weaken the state. For Britain and America, denial manifests in the glorification of past achievements while downplaying current challenges. Blame is shifted outward, and internal critiques are dismissed as unpatriotic or un-American, much like the Athenians dismissed Nicias's warnings as pessimistic and defeatist. Moreover, the consequences of such denial are profound. Just as Athens suffered from a protracted and ultimately disastrous conflict, modern empires risk destabilization from within if they continue to ignore the growing chasm between their lofty self-images and the harsh realities of the present. Economic challenges, cultural fragmentation, and political polarization can all serve as catalysts for further decline if left unaddressed. Lessons drawn from the decline. The rise and decline of empires is not a relic of the past. It is a dynamic process that continues to shape our world. Britain and America, once bastions of global influence, now exhibit many of the same traits that heralded the fall of previous empires: internal discord, denial of systemic challenges, and a tendency to shift blame rather than address root causes. As history has shown through the example of Athens and the ignored wisdom of Nicias, the refusal to face reality can have devastating consequences. By confronting their internal weaknesses and embracing the need for deep systemic reform, modern empires may yet find a way to adapt and thrive in an increasingly complex world. The lessons of history are clear. Without self-awareness and a willingness to change, even the most powerful nations can falter. The challenge for Britain and America now is to heed these lessons and navigate a path that bridges the gap between past glory and a sustainable future. Although governments and religions have served as the glue that has held humanity together, the Bible teaches that they will come to an end when God's kingdom is established on earth. How will that happen? We have Jeremiah, who prophesied about the fate of religions, and Daniel, who prophesied about the fate of governments. We shall focus on Daniel's prophecies, since he is the one who prophesied about the coming God's kingdom here on earth, and how these empires will be brought to an end. In the book of Daniel, chapter 2, verse 44, he wrote, "And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever." This shows that God's kingdom will crush all the other kingdoms forever. But why would God crush these kingdoms? He will crush them because of two reasons. First is because they are being ruled by the fourth beast that Daniel talked about in Daniel 7 verses 23 to 25, which says, "Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. And another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times, and the dividing of time." This beast did change the laws and times, which has caused humanity to stray from God. And because of this, we have made our planet to be devoured by the curse, and we have become desolate, according to Isaiah 24 verses 5 and 6, which says, "The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore hath the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left." The second reason why God will crush these kingdoms is because the time that God had said we would remain in punishment for failing to obey his laws has ended, according to Leviticus 26 verse 18, which says, "And if ye will not yet for all this hearken unto me, then I will punish you 7 times more for your sins." According to Daniel's prophecy, those 7 times ended in the year 2020. Let me explain further using scriptures how 2020 has come about. Daniel was given a lot of visions regarding the end. In one of those visions, he talked about a fourth beast that had 10 horns in Daniel 7 verse 7, which says, "After this I saw in the night visions, and behold a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns." And Daniel 7 verse 25 shows how this beast ruled the world by changing times and laws, and the verse reads, "And he shall speak great words against the highest, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and 2 times, and the dividing of time." When the beast changed the times, that's when people started celebrating festivals at the wrong months, started honoring the Sabbath on the wrong day, and counted a new year on the wrong month. When it changed the laws, that is when people started believing that we are no longer under the law, but under grace, and they therefore don't observe the laws that God gave to Moses. And this is what brought about the abomination of desolation. To learn more about this topic, you can refer to the March 2024 article from our website with the title, "The Source of Confusion in the Bible Explained." Daniel 7 verse 24 talks about how this beast had 10 horns, and it also had a king that rose to subdue the other kings from the other 3 beasts. The verse reads, "And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them. And he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings." These 4 beasts represent 4 kingdoms of Babylon, Media, Persia, Seleucid Greek, and Roman empires. The little horn that grew from the 10 horns came from the Seleucid Greek Empire under Antiochus I. The reason for saying this is because he was the first Greek king who revived the Babylonian culture and religion that influenced Persia, Egypt, modern-day Africa, and all the other regions that the Seleucid Greek Empire covered. Other kings after him, like the Antiochus IV, simply picked up from what was left and continued spreading this Babylonian religion, and took it even further by oppressing Judaism during the wars of the Maccabees. So we see that little horn that grew from the 10 horns started growing when Antiochus then came into full power, which was in 281 BC. Daniel also talks about how this little horn magnified itself even to the host of heaven, and it did cast down the place of the holy sanctuary and trampled the truth on the ground in Daniel 8 verses 11 to 12, which says, "Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. And an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered." Daniel asked God how long the truth was going to be cast down, and he was told that it would be 2,300 days in Daniel 8 verses 13 to 14, which says, "Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice, and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? And he said unto me, Unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed." In Ezekiel 4 verse 6 we see that in terms of prophecy, when God talks about one day, it translates to 1 year for man, and the verse reads, "And when thou hast accomplished them, lie again on thy right side, and thou shalt bear the iniquity of the house of Judah 40 days. I have appointed thee each day for a year." The 2,300 days that Daniel was told could be translated to be 2,300 years. The little horn started growing during Antiochus I's reign in 281 BC from mid-year. So his rule was firmly established in 280 BC. From the 2,300 minus 280 BC, we come to the year 2020. Also, Moses was told that people will be punished 7 times by God for failing to obey his laws in Leviticus 26:18, which says, "And if you will not yet for all this hearken unto me, then I will punish you 7 times more for your sins." One time to God is 368.5 days in 1 lunar year. 1 year without the extra month has 354 days. Other years have an extra month with 29 days. If we take an average between 2 years, one having 12 months and one having 13 months, we find that it has 354 days plus 29 divided by 2 days from the extra month that's spread across the 2 years. That gives a total of 368.5 days, so 7 times would be 2,579.5 days. Daniel was also told that the suffering period towards the end of the system would be 3.5 times, which represented half of the 7 times that we were to be punished. And these 3.5 times were to be 1,290 days in Daniel 12 verse 7, which says, "And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and sware by him that liveth for ever, that it shall be for a time, 2 times and a half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished." And Daniel 12 verses 11 to 12 says, "From the time that the daily sacrifice is abolished, and the abomination that causes desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. Blessed is the one who waits for and reaches the end of the 1,335 days. Therefore, the total of 7 times that we were to be punished would be 3.5 times multiplied by 2, making it to be 2,580 days. However, Daniel 12 verse 12 talks about how blessed is the one that will wait until 1,335 days, so 45 years were added to the 1,290 days. From the 7 times that we were supposed to be punished, we add that extra 45 years, which gives a total of 2,580 plus 45, which equals 2,625 days, which translates to 2,625 years. The punishment of the people of God started in Babylon under the rulership of Nebuchadnezzar II, who started ruling from the year 605 BC. To find when this punishment would end, we subtract from the total 2,625 years to give us 2,625 minus 605 equals to the year 2020. These are 2 calculations from the Bible proving that the year 2020 was the time that the Roman rulership was supposed to come to an end and for God's kingdom to be established here on earth. And it's now remaining for us to do our part in crying out to God to deliver us from our oppressors. The reason I am saying this is because we have an example of the Israelites who were meant to stay in slavery for 400 years but took an extra 30 years because they did not cry out to God to be delivered from slavery. Also, in Isaiah 19 verse 20, we see that the people of Egypt, which is modern-day Africa, will cry out to God to be delivered from their oppressors, and God will deliver them and send them a Saviour. And the verse reads, "And it shall be for a sign and for a witness unto the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt. For they shall cry unto the Lord because of the oppressors, and he shall send them a Saviour and a great one, and he shall deliver them." We have given power to these governments and religions because of our transgressions, according to Proverbs 28 verse 2, which says, "For the transgression of a land many are the princes thereof, but by a man of understanding and knowledge the state thereof shall be prolonged." So if we are tired of having many rulers over us, we need to stop blaming governments and religions. Instead, we need to go back to obeying God's laws. And that's why we're having this great revival from Kenya, that is teaching people about what our Creator requires of us for us to be set free from our oppressors. And until we do so, we will continue to watch as the wicked prosper and the righteous continue to be oppressed. Because we have already gone an extra 5 years from the year 2020 that we were meant to be free, we therefore need to proclaim this good news as far as possible, so we can all go to our Creator in unity and cry out to him to deliver us from this oppression and establish his kingdom here on earth. Key points to remember. We should not blame the governments and religions when they fail, for we are to blame. Our transgressions have brought about many rulers over us, according to Proverbs 28 verse 2. Religions and governments will be brought to an end. God will only deliver us if we cry out to him to be delivered from our oppressors. If we don't, God will still allow us to be under oppression. The year 2020 is when the punishment for humanity ended because of failing to obey God's laws. And we are now in 2025, which means we are 5 years past our due date to be delivered. We thus need to unite and cry out to our Creator for his kingdom to be established here on earth. That's all for today. I hope you did learn quite a few things from this video. If you have any questions, you can send us an email or write your question in the comments section. And if you enjoyed this video and it brought value to your day, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with someone who might need it too. And if you want to be part of this journey with us, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you're the first to know when we share more content. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch our video. Stay tuned, stay inspired, and we'll see you in the next one.